Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday, January 24th. Unseasonably mild conditions here this morning in much of the Mid-Atlantic region ahead of a strong cold frontal system. Heavy rain will continue for the next several hours at times in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor ahead of that frontal system. Winds are quite strong as well out of the south to southeast. Will gust past 40 miles per hour or so at times throughout the next several hours. Much colder air returns late in the afternoon and in the overnight hours, and the next couple of days, Friday and Saturday, will be well below normal for this time of the year. Looking ahead to next week, there continue to be signs for really an incredible cold air outbreak, a brutally cold air outbreak by the middle part of next week that will affect much of the central and eastern U.S. It'll probably end up being a real newsmaker. Again, a brutal cold air mass looks like it's on the way for much of the central and eastern U.S. by the middle part of next week. For now, temperatures in the 50s here in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. We had a surge of warm air along the Atlantic seaboard in the overnight hours. Temperatures actually rose from the low 40s early last night in some areas to the mid-50s this morning. There have been reports of a tremendous jump in temperatures once this warm frontal system passed through particular areas. I saw one report of a 19-degree rise in temperatures just a couple hours ago in New Jersey, from 1 hour to the next as that warm frontal system passed through. Here's the cold front. Still several hours to go with rain. We'll take a look at the radar in a moment, but behind it, colder air moves in, and you notice it's kind of a secondary cold front here. It actually gets a little bit colder between Friday and Saturday, kind of a reinforcing shot of cold air, but again, unseasonably mild for much of the morning hours into the midday, and then temperatures should fall this afternoon, late this afternoon, after the passage of this initial cold frontal system, and then we kind of step down in temperatures between Friday and Saturday, both days well below normal for this time of the year. Well, here's a look at the radar loop in the northeastern part of the country, and again, several hours to go with rain here in the I-95 corridor. It won't rain at all times, but there can be heavy rain at just about any time, maybe even a rumble or two of thunder as that strong cold front arrives in the I-95 corridor, but still scattered heavy rain over the next several hours and seasonably mild conditions right into the afternoon. But then, once the cold front passes, the winds will shift from the south to southeasterly direction to a northwesterly direction late in the day. Temperatures are likely to drop from the 50s this morning through the 40s during the mid and late afternoon hours. Well, let's walk through last night's zero-Z run of the GFS model, and again, the main point of emphasis here I want to make is what a brutal cold air mass looks like it's in the cards for next week in the central and eastern U.S. Probably a news-making event. Potential temperatures down to at least 20 below in places like Chicago. We'll get to that in a moment here. First of all, unseasonably mild today along the Atlantic seaboard ahead of a strong cold frontal system. Low pressure right along that frontal boundary zone enhancing the rainfall. Plus, we talked yesterday about very supportive in the upper part of the atmosphere with a very strong jet streak passing nearby in the Mid-Atlantic region today. That enhances upper motion, increases the chance for gusty winds past 40 miles per hour at the surface, and of course increases the chance for more heavy rainfall, including perhaps a rumble of thunder. On the backside, once that front goes through, colder air will pour in. Could be some snowflakes even into the I-95 corridor at the end of the afternoon on the backside of this frontal system here. Again, colder air pours in, will drop from the 50s right through the 40s, perhaps ending up in the upper 30s by the end of the afternoon. Even an outside chance that the rain tapers off as some snowflakes at the end of the day. And then we move forward here. We talked a little bit about kind of a secondary cold air push, and that will indeed make Saturday a bit colder than Friday. Both of those days quite cold relative to normal, but primarily dry and sunny. Despite that sunshine, well below normal for both of those days. And then we'll start moving through the weekend into the early part of next week just to show the beginning signs of this a brutally cold air mass coming first into the north central U.S. Early to mid next week. Here we are now by Monday morning. Here's a low pressure area that will usher in that brutally cold air mass during next week. And that cold front actually slides into the eastern U.S. and very well could cause some accumulating snow in the I-95 corridor around Tuesday. It looks like slow-moving cold frontal system very likely could cause some snow, maybe even some accumulations in the I-95 corridor around Tuesday. Now let's look upstream. Here we are early Wednesday, late Tuesday night, early Wednesday. These are thickness values right here. They represent the lowest half of the atmosphere, the 1,000 to 500 millibar thickness layer, and basically the lower, the colder it is, the lower the thickness values. Basically, with the colder conditions, the layer will contract, and lower temperatures, lower thickness values are well correlated with lower temperatures. So when you see a thickness here of 480, that's incredibly cold, and that is a widespread area with a thickness of 480. One of the kind of the rules of thumb I learned at Penn State many years ago was you could take that 1,000 to 500 millibar thickness and get kind of a ballpark figure of the surface temperature. For example, 540 thickness might translate to a 40-degree temperature, 520 thickness, maybe a 20-degree temperature at the surface, give or take several degrees. Again, just a ballpark here. So a 500 thickness kind of is correlated with a 0-degree temperature at the surface. Well, imagine 480. That's equivalent to perhaps 20 degrees below zero. Again, it's just kind of a rule of thumb, but this really raises a red flag that Chicago, for example, could be at least 20 degrees below zero by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. This brutally cold air mass then continues to drop to the south and east, and really by the time Wednesday rolls around and Thursday, it should be very, very cold in the Mid-Atlantic region, as first it impacts the central U.S. and then ultimately the eastern U.S. by Wednesday or Thursday of next week. And again, there's a threat for some snow ahead of it on Tuesday, so we'll monitor that over the next several days. But for the next several hours, unseasonably mild in the east, heavy rain continues at times, and strong wind gusts past 40 miles per hour or so. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.